So you know what's a little weird? The fact that the Western Conference is so much better than the East, yet the East is more difficult to predict. Because when I look at the Eastern Conference, I think it's relatively competitive. Now, it's nothing compared to the West, but once I get outside of the top 3 or 4 teams in the East, I really have no idea who's going to finish where. Now, I should preface all of this by saying Cleveland is by far the best team in the Eastern Conference, and they will go on to the NBA Finals. But it's still kind of fun to predict how the East is going to go. So if I had to go with a seeding, I would say Cleveland is the 1 seed, definitely. The 2 seed, I was struggling between the Atlanta Hawks and the Chicago Bulls. I think I'm siding with the Bulls here because I think the Hawks are really going to miss DeMarre Carroll's defense and his shooting, because when I look at the small forwards on their roster now, it's Kyle Korver and Thabo Sefolosha. Now, the one great thing about Carroll was that he allowed Korver to play shooting guard, because there, Korver doesn't have to go up against guys who are significantly stronger than him. Now, Korver has to play small forward because they don't have any other small forwards on the roster, except Sefolosha, like I mentioned before, but Sefolosha doesn't give you any offense. So now, who plays the shooting guard spot for the Hawks? It might be Kent Bazemore. And yeah, I love the guy in my Knicks My GM, but in IRL, outside of a decent three-point shot, he doesn't have much. I mean, DeMarre Carroll, besides being a very good three-point shooter, was an efficient player all around. Bazemore, not very efficient. So that's a downgrade. And I think that in itself is going to knock the Hawks down to the 3 seed. Still number 3 because, I mean, Jeff Teague, Korver, Millsap, Al Horford, coached by Mike Budenholzer. They have Schroeder as well as Splitter off the bench, so they're still going to be very good, but I think they're going to get knocked down a little bit. And I'm going to elevate the Bulls to number 2 because Fred Hoiberg, man, that guy is going to be much more creative with his lineups, with his rotations. Derrick Rose is 1 season farther from coming back from injury. Jimmy Butler's probably going to get a little better. If Joakim Noah can come back to MVP form, or MVP candidate form, that'd be fantastic, but we don't know. So I think Chicago's the 2 seed. I think Atlanta's the 3. Number 4, we're going to go with the Miami Heat. And, I mean, like I said before, I think the Heat could be very high. I think they could be very low. There's a lot of ifs. Dwayne Wade's health, Dwayne Wade's ability to play with Goran Dragic. Is Goran Dragic really as good as everybody thinks he is? Can Whiteside hold up? Can Luol Deng hold up? There's so many questions with these guys, and I think if there's this much uncertainty, there's no way you can be a 1 or a 2 seed. Something's got to go wrong, you know? Now, of course, we assume some things will go right as well, but there's so much uncertainty with Miami. They'll be very interesting, and they'll probably be my go-to league pass team, but I can't put them higher than 4. I just can't. Now, I'm going to be honest. After the top 4 seeds, I got no freaking clue. Okay, we're looking at Toronto, Washington, Boston, Milwaukee, Detroit, Indiana, Orlando. 7 teams that I think could all make the playoffs for 4 spots. And I got no freaking clue. I mean, if we go down the list, I think Toronto got better with the acquisition of DeMarre Carroll, and they're still decently talented, but at the same time, if DeMar DeRozan doesn't acquire that 3-point shot, which he has not done yet, I don't know how good Toronto really is. Like, I think they're capped out at a 5 seed. Washington got worse because they lost Paul Pierce. Now, they acquired Jared Dudley, but at his best, he's going to be basically what Paul Pierce was last year, but I can't picture that. I can't picture Jared Dudley making the impact that Paul Pierce makes. And outside of that roster just still isn't very good. And you're looking at Randy Whitman as your head coach. I mean, if he's the Randy Whitman from the playoffs, okay, we might have something, but it still doesn't change the fact that you got John Wall, you got Bradley Beal, Marcin Gortat is okay, and outside of that, it's really not much. Really not much. I mean, if Otto Porter and Kelly Oubre can make jumps, that would be really, really something, but I can't picture that happening. Milwaukee, they acquired Greg Monroe. That is definitely significant for them at the center position. However, they were not very good last year to end the season. They were 11-18 with Michael Carter-Williams on the roster. And that was probably because they went from Brandon Knight, who was maybe not the most efficient player in the world, but a good three-point shooter, and they went to Michael Carter-Williams, who just can't shoot, period. Now, they are getting Jabari Parker back. They're also getting a full year of experience, of course, but we're still waiting on some things. We're waiting on, can Michael Carter-Williams develop that jumper? Can Giannis Antetokounmpo get a jump shot? Is Greg Monroe as good as we think he is? Like, there are questions here. But you have to assume Milwaukee is going to get better just from signing Greg Monroe, getting Jabari Parker back. Next, the Boston Celtics, my favorite team. I think they have one of the best coaches in the NBA period in Brad Stevens. That being said, this roster still is not very talented. I mean, and there's a logjam everywhere. They just drafted 1 million point guards. I still don't really love Avery Bradley. I love his defense. I don't love his offense. Jay Crowder is great coming off the bench, but he's got to improve the jump shot. And then there's a logjam with him and Evan Turner. Power forward, I mean, there's Amir Johnson, there's Jared Sullinger, there's David Lee. Still don't have a center. I mean, there's just... The Celtics can go in so many different directions, and you know they will, because Danny Ainge is going to make some sort of trade or multiple trades throughout the season, and I guarantee the roster is not going to look the same as when it started. But as of right now, they're my favorite team, but I can't picture these guys getting higher than a 6th seed. There's just so much uncertainty with the Celtics. And they're still just not that talented. Like, I think Marcus Smart is going to make a jump, and I think Marcus Smart will end up being a very, very good player in the NBA. But I think we're about 1 year away for the Celtics being about a mid-tier team in the East. But they will be very exciting. That's, without a doubt. And, like I mentioned, Brad Stevens in himself, I mean, he's better than Dwayne Casey. He's better than Randy Whitman. He's better than Jason Kidd. He's better than a lot of the head coaches in the East, and that in itself could get the Celtics to a mid-tier team, but talent-wise, I don't see it. The Orlando Magic, they could be something. They might be a surprise team. Now, Elfrid Payton's got to develop the jumper, and I still don't know what they're doing with the power forward position. I mean, Aaron Gordon is very but Victor Oladipo, Tobias Harris, Nikola Vucevic. There's a real thing going on in Orlando right now, and is Scott Skiles the right head coach? Personally, I wouldn't have hired him because he's kind of he's one of those military general type of head coaches. But I mean, he's definitely going to bring the discipline. Does he bring the? I don't know. I still think Orlando might be a bit away, but I could see him contending for maybe the 8th seed. Indiana, the Pacers, apparently they want to go with Paul George at power forward. So then we're looking at probably George Hill, Monte Ellis, I guess Solomon Hill or CJ Miles, Paul George at the 4, Jordan Hill at the 5. Honestly, I like that better than I do Miles Turner starting. Indiana's very interesting. I could picture Indiana getting up as high as 4 or 5, but there's a lot of questions with the front line. So I just went down. Oh, and the Detroit Pistons finally. The Pistons, they're going to have to get that point guard situation going. And I feel like their wings, which is probably going to be either Jody Meeks or Contavious Caldwell-Pope, Stanley Johnson, I don't know if there's going to be enough scoring out of those positions. So, and we don't know if Drummond's going to make a jump. There's a lot of uncertainty in the Eastern Conference, and like, if I had to put a seeding on it, if I really had to, I'm pretty confident with the top 4. Cleveland, Chicago, Atlanta, Miami. 5 through 8? I don't know, man. I guess I'm literally thinking of this on the fly. We'll go Indiana, Toronto, Washington, the Celtics. There you go. I don't know, okay? I could see Milwaukee getting the 5. I could see the Celtics getting the 5. I could see I got no freaking clue 5 through 8, man. Okay, the least I could do is just talk about each team. So, there you are. The East is going to be a big cluster, but then in the end, it's going to be the Cleveland Cavaliers representing the team in the Eastern Conference, and we all know that, and that's fine. Shout out to J-Rock, because the new album is very good, and that's going to be it.